This afternoon comes from Luke 23, verses 39 through 43. One of the criminals who were hanged there railed at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus said, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." Two criminals were crucified with him that day, one on the left and one on the right. We don't know their names. We don't know their crimes. We know that by their own confession they are guilty and deserve their punishment. One of them looks over at the man hanging between them and says, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." These are the concluding moments of Jesus' life and ministry. And in addition to letting us know what kind of man this was, the words of this dying criminal bring us back to the very first moments of Jesus' ministry. You remember that before Jesus' ministry began, he was in the wilderness for 40 days, where he was tempted by the devil. And remember the tempter's words, "If you are the Son of God, turn this stone into bread. If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. If you are the Son of God." 3 times. If you are the Son of God. Here at the end of his ministry, he hears the same words again 3 times. And the first occurs in the passage immediately before tonight's where the leaders of the synagogue say, "If he is the Christ, his chosen one, let him save himself." And then the Roman soldiers, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." And now this third time, from one of the crucified criminals, "Are you not the Christ? If you are, save yourself, and then us." Jesus begins and ends his ministry with the challenge to prove who he is. And in his death on the cross, Jesus concludes his ministry as he began it, on behalf of and associating with the lost. "I have come to seek the lost," he says. And to one of the lost, hanging next to him on a cross, he says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." The second criminal, the one to whom Jesus extends this remarkable act of mercy, the one tradition has come to call the penitent thief, speaks not to Jesus first, but to the other criminal hanging on the cross. "Do you not fear God?" he says. "You and I are guilty of our crimes, and we deserve our punishment, but this man has done nothing wrong." The phrase "has done nothing wrong" literally means has done nothing out of place. Jesus has not departed from his assigned path in life. He has been true to his own self, and as such is innocent. You and I, however, are not so innocent. Our crime is that we have not been true to our identity. We have wandered from our path. We have forgotten and denied who we are, and have followed other paths and other leaders who would claim our allegiance. In an effort to build up our own self-esteem, we have brought others down. We have given in to a culture that defines us by what we own and what we accomplish. And more we are pressured to see the cross and the flag as having equal claims on our loyalties. And we cannot serve 2 lords. The second criminal, the penitent thief, knew this. Knew it on his deathbed, if not before. Knew who this Jesus was and what his relationship was to him. He knew as we so often forget that the only way to approach the cross of Jesus is with open and empty hands. Nothing to offer in exchange for a place in God's kingdom, nothing to offer as proof of our own worthiness. And the words of this penitent thief were simple. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Remember me. It's not the first time we've heard that plea. After Joseph, you remember, interpreted the dream of Pharaoh's cupbearer, Joseph said, remember me when it is well with you. Remember me, Hannah prayed to God, and God did, giving her a child. Remember me, prayed Nehemiah on more than one occasion, and God did. Remember me, wrote the psalmist, according to thy steadfast love. Remember me for thy goodness' sake. Remember me in prayer, we ask one another. Keep me in your thoughts and prayers, we say. I will remember you, we say. It's a recognition of our own fragility and our own vulnerability, a recognition of the truth that we cannot make it alone. That we need to let go of our defenses, let go of our feeble attempts to prove ourselves before God and one another. And Jesus' response to the man's simple request to remember him is far more than the thief asked for. Today, you will be with me in paradise. Not only in some unforeseen and unforeseeable future, not only in the sweet by and by, but today. On the day you and I return to the path that God has placed us on the day we let go of our attempts to prove ourselves, on the day you and I let go of all our identities other than the one bestowed upon us by God as children of God. Jesus begins his ministry proclaiming good news to the poor and release to the captives. And he ends his ministry offering an assurance of blessing to a thief hanging on a cross, who surely is one of the least of these. If we hear correctly the words from this sinner's mouth, we are moved to recognize that before an innocent and suffering Christ, we too are guilty and stand in need of God's mercy. And so we join this penitent thief in prayer, asking only that we be remembered. One of my colleagues tells of the time when his mother had died. And the colleague's wife said, all the really interesting people one really enjoys, aren't here anymore. Dying doesn't seem so bad, she says, when you consider who's up there. If you've lost someone you love, one of the really interesting people, then you know there is truth in what she said. But when we look back on those really interesting people, a major part of the reason they were so interesting is that they had learned to let go. Like the thief on the cross. All we have to fall back on is the grace of God. And the assurance offered to us all of us penitent sinners, that he will not let us go. Open your hands. Open your heart. Say, remember me. And by the grace of God, you may very well hear him say, today you will be with me